Morning, Crosswalk. Thanks so much for being here today. I really appreciate it. As Dar said, on this first day of summer, we're glad that you're here. I wanted to just review real quick some about what we are. So, haven't done this for a while, but that's why I wanted to bring it up. So, as Michael just mentioned, shalom is what we're all about here at Crosswalk. I think it was Jesus' goal. I think it's God's goal, and therefore it should be our goal for everything we do. It is the Word. If you're looking for a word that encapsulates resurrection, renewal, restoration, reinvigoration on earth as it is in heaven, that word is shalom. A lot of times we just think it's peace, but it's bigger than that. It means well-being for all, everybody, harmony between everybody and creation itself. And when we look at the person of Jesus and what he did, it's one of these chicken and egg things about how I think shalom changed him. So either shalom motivated him to stretch his mind. He realized he needed to be endlessly curious, caused him to kneel in service wherever he was, stand for grace and justice, commune with God in his different ways, and connect with other people. Either shalom caused him to do that, impelled him to do that, or maybe it's both. As he understood shalom, he couldn't help but be more curious. If he wanted to see more shalom in the world, it meant that he had to kneel in service. He had to stand for grace and justice if he wanted to see more shalom in the world. If he wanted to see more shalom in the world, it meant he needed to spend more time dedicated to meditation and prayer and these things of cultivating his spirit. And he never did it alone. This is a radical departure for you and I in the United States. If we were to have a cultural picture of Jesus, it would probably be John Wayne. Rugged individualist, going to ride into town, clean everything up. That's not Jesus. Jesus chose to do everything he did in community. So that's who we are. It's just an example of what we're trying to be in the world, and we've designed the church on these 5 movements, all so that we might facilitate more shalom in our space, believing that the more in touch we are with shalom, we're going to do these things more and more naturally. And the more we cultivate these things, the easier it is for us to be engaged in shalom. All right. Clear as day, I know. All right, so let's get into this Holy Currencies thing that we're doing right now. We're in this 6-part series. Holy Currencies talks about these different flows of God, which are similar to our movements. They're related. There's a little overlap here where this author, Eric Law, suggests that churches themselves need to think about these currencies that churches use to make a difference in the world. The currency of gracious leadership, of relationship, truth, wellness, money, and time and place. All of these things are being a part of the flow of what God is trying to do, and the more we engage these currencies, the more we are in that flow. So, I do want to say that the reason why we didn't make this book available by Eric Law is because it really wasn't written for individual consummation. This was written for churches and church leadership to think through how can our churches do these things and leverage these currencies to be part of what God's doing in the world. This particular one, as Dar already mentioned, we've got that pretty well nailed down. In fact, I don't know literally, there's not much room left on our church calendar to do much more with our space because we have so much going on here. Literally, already this morning at, I think it's 6:30 in the morning, was the first recovery group that met here in our facility. They were gone long before we got here to start making coffee. You can still smell the coffee in the air from that support group. And that one, as well as 42 others, occupy this wing throughout the week. And that accounts for roughly 1,000 people flowing through that hall every week, just coming here for shalom in their life. Healing, recovery from what they're going through. And you know the other places, the preschool, and what we do with the wing on Sundays with our kids program, and our own food pantry in the back hall, and the gym way back there, which gets used just about every day of the week. We pride ourselves on being used of the community, and we're known for that, and we're very proud of that. But that's not all. Even our empty spaces on our lots, we have these truck boxes, these storage boxes from nonprofits in the community that needed free space or cheap space. And so we have a storage box for people coming out of domestic violence. We have another one just for people moving into their new home after being houseless for some period of time. We have another one for foster kids supplies. We have another one for pets and their needs. And maybe you need an extra dog leash, but you don't have enough money for a leash. Well, we've got you covered because we've got a box for that. We've got stuff for food insecurity issues, and on and on and on it goes. So rather than talk about that more, I want to bring this to a personal level with us. And so I'm going to take you through a story today that looks at how Jesus did this time and space thing. I'm changing the words a little bit. Instead of place, I want to say space. How are we entering into time and space with people? Before we get there, I've got a question for you. Has there ever been a person in your life who you remember took their time, maybe had to carve out time, to make space for you, to meet you in your time and in your space, because they deemed that that was a wise thing to do, that it would bless you in some way? May have been a total inconvenience for them, but they recognized that it was going to be a very important gift to you. This could be, I don't know, a teacher, could be a mentor, could be a coach, could be a parent, could be a sibling, could be a friend, could be a coworker. Anybody think of somebody in your life that did that for you? Anybody want to name that person or tell that story? Can everybody think of somebody in your life who did something for you that way? Raise your hand. Just let me make sure. All right, you've got 2 minutes around the table. Tell a story of how this happened for you. And if you're alone at a table, go find somebody at another table. All right. Go do it. All right. You need 30 seconds? All right. All right, so as I take you through this story, I want you to be in the full story. We're going to do a little bit different today. I want to have a little bit more group dialogue than we might normally do because I think there's so much here for us to enjoy. So this is the story. It's out of Luke. By the way, the rest of the world who follows a liturgical calendar and such, they're looking at a great story in John chapter 9 where Jesus heals a blind guy. I've taught that story so many times, and we are still in Women's History Month, and so we're taking a look at a time when Jesus did a very powerful thing for at least 2 women, and it's very powerful. This is called, I'm calling it, One Walk and Asking How Many Healings Happened Here. This is the story. Little nerd note, Luke was at least we think he was a medical doctor, and more than any other gospel writer, he cared about women and children because they were the more vulnerable of the people in their world. So a man named Jairus, who was a synagogue leader, came and fell at Jesus' feet. That's a strange thing to do, isn't it? It's because he was desperate. He pleaded with Jesus to come to his house because his only daughter, a 12-year-old, was dying. A girl just on the cusp of womanhood, just to start her adult life in their world, was dying. As Jesus moved forward, he faced smothering crowds. A woman was there who had been bleeding, hemorrhaging, for 12 years. She had spent her entire livelihood on doctors, but no one could heal her. She came up behind him and touched the hem of his clothes, and at once her bleeding stopped. So I want to talk a little about her for a moment. Hemorrhaging for 12 years. We might have some ideas about what this might be today. Was it endometriosis, perhaps? Some other condition that made this happen and she couldn't stop it and no doctor knew how to make this happen? We don't know. But we do know that she ran out of cash. We have people today, still today, that one medical emergency and they're toast. I knew a guy back in northern Illinois in my first church. He had cancer. And his debt was so high in the millions of dollars, he knew there was never any chance for him to overcome that. And he was just left to make it on whatever was able to come to him because there was no hope. That's this woman. She has nothing. Because of her hemorrhaging, she's been isolated. She can't go to synagogue. People don't want to touch her because they will become ritually unclean. That will make them incapable of going to the synagogue or the temple if they wanted to venture down to Jerusalem. Forget Jerusalem. No bother there. It's not going to happen for her. This is a woman who's been desperate for 12 years. That also means that she most likely was unable to have children. And if you're a woman back in that age, that was your goal. That was how you understood your value, your worth, and that was stripped of her because of whatever this condition was. So she'd known that Jesus was up in his home region at this point, and knew that Jesus was known for healing, and decided why not take a chance. It's interesting what she does here. She comes up behind him, which means she's touching all kinds of people, right? Because the crowds are pressing in. So she's kind of making a nuisance of herself. And because she's from this town, people knew her in this town. They're probably not too happy after they feel somebody brush past and they figure out it's her. They're like, oh, come on. No synagogue for me this week, or whatever the thing might be, right? They're frustrated probably with this. As she comes and chooses to reach out, it's interesting that she touched the hem of his clothes. Now, we don't know if she knew this. Every time we read a story like this, we have this tension. Is this verbatim? Is this exactly what happened? Or is Luke giving us this picture? Yes, the answer is yes. Somewhere in there, yes. But we know Luke is giving this detail of getting through this crowd to touch the hem of his robe. Now, I just thought that was an interesting thing until several years ago. I was reading about this phenomenon in the Minor Prophets, where there was this prophecy that was foretold about the coming one, the Messiah, who we see as Jesus. And it said there would be healing in the wings of the Messiah. Healing in the wings of the Messiah. Well, that might not make any relevant point here, but in the Hebrew language, that word that gives us wings is the same word that would give us tassel. Think about a tassel and what they look like. They kind of look like feathers, if you use your imagination a little bit. And it's as if she was remembering this, that she'd been told at some point that when this healing one, this man of God, this anointed one comes, there will be healing even in the tassel of his robe, healing in his wings. What does she have to lose? She's been humiliated for 12 years, isolated for 12 years. It's not going to get any worse, is it? So she goes for it and immediately finds the healing she's been looking for. It's a remarkable story. It doesn't end there. Who touched me? Jesus asked. When everyone denied it, Peter said, Master, the crowds are surrounding you and pressing in on you. But Jesus said, someone touched me. I know that power has gone out from me. I find that incredibly curious. We'll come back to that later. That this woman experienced healing. Jesus had no idea that it was about to happen, but it happened anyway. Somehow, even the hem of his robe, even the tassel on the hem of his robe, was a conduit for the Spirit of God to do something that day. Quite interesting. Gets my head very curious. Well, when the woman saw that she couldn't escape notice, she came trembling and fell before Jesus. In front of everyone, she explained why she had touched him and how she had been immediately healed. Now, can you imagine what's going through her mind at this point? She's been called out. Is he going to take it back? I mean, in that time and place in history, it's entirely possible that Jesus could say, I'm deeply offended. You didn't ask for this. You didn't ask for permission. You didn't go through my disciples. You just decided to go for it. That was very presumptuous of you and rude. How do you know I only got one healing in me today? And you just took it. I mean, all the kinds of things that might go through her mind. He is a position of power. He's an authority. He's a celebrity at this point. And she's just done something that caused him to stop in his tracks. And now the spotlight is on her. What's he going to do? She has to do something. She has to confess. He's going to figure it out. So she just explains. And look at his response. Daughter. Daughter. Not just, all right, your face made you well, but daughter. How long had it been since she'd been called daughter? With love. How long had she been included in anybody's family? Daughter, your faith has healed you. Go in peace. Wow. This is such a great story. We almost forget that we were part of another story. Because remember, Jesus is walking somewhere, and he got rudely interrupted by this woman who just wanted to be healed that day. So while Jesus was still speaking, someone came from the synagogue leader's house saying to Jairus, your daughter has died. Don't bother the teacher any longer. Can you imagine Jairus' reaction at this point? How his heart must have sunk. They were just moments away from his house. And now he gets this news. But when Jesus heard this, he responded, don't be afraid. Just keep trusting, and she will be healed. When he came to the house, he didn't allow anyone to enter with him except Peter, John, and James, and the child's mother and father. They were all crying and mourning for her, but Jesus said, don't cry. She isn't dead, she's only sleeping. And they laughed at him because they knew she was dead. Taking her hand, Jesus called out, "Child, get up." Her life returned, and she got up at once. He directed them to give her something to eat. Her parents were beside themselves with joy, but he ordered them to tell no one what had happened. This is such an incredibly rich story, and I don't want to miss any of it. So I have questions for you today to think about and to talk about. I'm wondering how you relate to the characters in the story. Not just one character, but every character in this story. I wonder how you might relate to the Father. Has there ever been an issue that you had that for somebody else that you love so much and you were pleading, you were desperate for somebody else? Maybe it was a prayer concern you heard. I don't know what it is. Maybe it was your own child, a similar situation like this, and you would have done anything to get the help that they needed. Have you ever experienced anything like that? And as you go through the story, maybe your attitude, your emotions change in the story as everything comes to a screeching halt. And you're wondering, as the father, we don't have time to waste here. My daughter, she could be dying any second now. Let's get this thing going. And Jesus himself stops for a while. How does that make you feel? Have you ever felt like there was something really important that you were after, that you thought God was all about, and yet you were stopped in your tracks and you felt frustrated by the pause, impatient, because you were certain you needed to get there sooner than later? Maybe for you it's the struggling woman. If you're a woman in this audience, I'm guessing you have felt this to some degree because you're a woman in a still patriarchal culture. And while things have improved and are improving of recent years, we've taken some steps backwards, haven't we? And we need to go forward. And so maybe that's part of your frustration. You're like, when are we going to heal this wound of inequality and inequity and inclusion, if that's a word? How do we understand this? Or maybe you've had, maybe it's a physical thing, or maybe you've had an emotional wound that you just can't get taken care of, and you're desperate to find healing. Maybe for you it's not an emotional thing, or maybe it is, but it doesn't come through feeling words so much as your eyes. And maybe when you see something or see someone, it takes you to a certain place. Maybe you have a voice in your head from the past. And it's like you can still hear them. And they still have some kind of control in your life. And for you, you need your hearing healed. Because every time you hear that voice, it takes you to a very un-shalomy place where you feel broken. Maybe it's just something in your mind, your memory, whatever it is. I think probably every one of us can identify with a struggling woman. We may not think we do, but I bet all of us can also relate to the disciples and the fans. There's those people in the crowd that are nameless, that are fans of Jesus. They're the ones who are probably crowding in. Jesus is a celebrity. They want to see what's going on. They want to be in on the action. You got the inner 12 around, plus some women, by the way, who are part of that inner circle that Jesus welcomed, which was amazing in his day and age. What are you thinking about this? What are you thinking about the traffic jam? You're expecting crowds, but now the thing's come to a halt. And you know the urgency of the situation. You want to get Jesus there so he can do his thing. And now you're stuck at the base of the Bay Bridge. You can see the city just across there. You need to get there, but you can't. And you're frustrated. You're angry about what's happening. You start to get frustrated. You find out that this woman just did this thing, and if Jesus isn't going to be upset, you're going to be upset on his behalf. How dare you command an audience with him without going and checking with us? You completely avoided protocol here. You're out of line. Then I wonder how things might have changed when they saw Jesus' reaction to her daughter. Did they immediately, kind of swallow hard and think, man, yikes, I was ready to chew her out. And he calls her daughter. Jesus doesn't seem to be angry at all. How about the oblivious crowd? We just assumed there was an oblivious crowd around, right? Not everybody was a fan of Jesus or had any clue what was going on. They're just going about their day. They're just going to the Ace Hardware store to pick up some screws for whatever project they had to do that night, and there's this crowd going by. They have no idea that this Jesus guy is a healer or a celebrity. They've never heard of the guy, don't really know much about him. They just know that he's slowing down traffic that day. The oblivious crowd. I wonder how many people are in oblivion today. No idea about the holiness that is all about them. Just going through their day, missing so much. I wonder how often you and I have been a part of that oblivious mass of people that have forgotten that we are stepping on holy ground wherever we go. I wonder what it was like for the 12-year-old girl. I wonder if you resonate with her in any way. This is a 12-year-old girl who probably wasn't taken or treated very seriously. And now she gets this visit from Jesus, this known healer. She gets this kind of attention. What does that do for how you feel about yourself? You have two 12-year periods, right? You've got a little girl here who's 12 years old. She's about to move into womanhood, which means her life in that frame is just about to begin, about to have kids. That means she's going to be on the marriage march before you know it, right? And that whole machine is going to start for her. And you have this other woman who's just been healed after 12 years of hemorrhaging. Can't have a child. What an interesting combination of things that are happening here in this story. So rich. And what about Jesus? What do you think is going through his mind in this? Did he know that this was even possible? That somebody could just reach out and grab the back of his coat, and all of a sudden they could find healing through him? I mean, this is his first time. He's like, I didn't even know I had that superpower. Look at that. What's going on in his mind? I mean, is this stretching for him as well? And by the way, I know that anytime we look at a healing story, it gets complex and complicated right away. Raises all kinds of questions about how some people get healed and some people don't, and how do we make sense of that, and should we just throw the whole thing out? I understand that. I think there's room in ways that we can't fully appreciate yet for incredible things to happen that we would look at and say, well, that was a miracle. And actually, I'm pretty confident that several of you, including myself, have had such experiences. Maybe for Jesus, even this was a surprise to him. And then more broadly, if we really believe that God is everywhere all the time, then I wonder how the Spirit of God, if we can personify God for a moment, I wonder how this very Spirit of God would view this entire situation. What's going on in the Spirit's mind? Certainly thrilled that this woman found healing because the Spirit's all about shalom. Maybe the Spirit is shalom. And now this woman found that and found healing and empowerment and personhood and agency and all these wonderful gifts of a mature adult person and things that they should have. But maybe also the Spirit of God, this shalom, was also somewhat disappointed. How many other people were here? How many people could have just reached out? He's right there. How many people are struggling with something and all you had to do is tap him on the shoulder? Maybe that would be enough. I mean, it's pretty close to the hem of his robe. It's on the same garment. Certainly the power could carry up to the shoulder. Who knows? Is there any kind of disappointment here or a longing for people to recognize the holiness of the moment and allow more of the Spirit of God in? Are there any of these that are particularly resonant with you, that you feel like some of these, as I'm talking about their experience, are there any of these that really seem to ding you in your head? You're like, oh man, yep, that's the one that is speaking to me today. Anybody got one of those? I'm the only one? All right, very good. 30 seconds, tell somebody around the table, this is one that's coming out to me, and if only one speaks, that's fine. I just want somebody to say something. All right. All right. I hope you'll continue these conversations over baked potatoes here in just a few minutes and tell your story about how these things resonated with you. I wanted to immerse you in this thing today and see it for all of its fullness, and even things that I certainly haven't thought of today. But there's one more question, because we're talking about time and space today. And this whole thing started because Jesus gave time and space to these moments, to these two needs that were in front of him, to the request of the Father, and then through the crowd stopped to recognize the time and space moment with this woman, and then again finally getting to the daughter and all that, and all the things in between, time and space. And because Jesus availed himself of these things and gave himself to this shalom in action, healing happened even in ways that he did not expect or anticipate or maybe even know he could be a part of. It's remarkable. I'm wondering today, how might the Spirit of God be inviting you to spend time and space to bring about healing or shalom? Because maybe you have no idea that you have a superpower. And you won't know, perhaps. In fact, I bet there have been times in your life where you have done something like just walking through the room. And because of how you carried yourself, because you chose to be shalomi in that moment, somebody else experienced the shalom off of you. I don't need to get too sci-fi here, right? But I think you know what I mean. That you impacted somebody and it made a difference for them. Even if you think it's small, you don't know. In our early service, one of our crosswalkers talked about how he was just at Safeway this week. And he had some kind of family connection to grocery stores and stuff. And so there was this very young employee there, a young woman who was putting the cheese in the cabinet or whatever the thing's called on display. And he just commented to her, "You're doing a great job with that cheese display. Way to go." And she lit up, beaming with a smile. Well, that's a little shalomi moment, isn't it? Or I wonder when everybody else is grumpy in that Safeway line because they can't afford enough checkout people, and you're trying to get through, but you're not grumpy because you recognize you can't do anything about it anyway, so you decide to take advantage of the moment. And you're happy as a lark because you might as well be shalomi. What's the point in being grumpy? Who's it going to help? And in your shalominess, somebody around you is impacted by that. I bet you have been a conduit for healing in countless ways over the course of your life. And I'm wondering if today you might be a little bit more aware of just who might need that touch. Because I bet there is somebody in your life. It may not be a direct person in front of you, although it could be someone right across the table. I don't know. But maybe somebody is coming into your mind. It's almost like the Spirit of God is tapping you on the shoulder, giving you a little bit of a nudge. This person's coming into your consciousness, and you're like, hey, you know what? I think I ought to send that person a text. I'm gonna get them an email today. I'm gonna pick up the phone, or I'm gonna give them a handwritten note of encouragement today, because nobody gets handwritten notes anymore. And maybe your act of shalominess is going to bring about a healing that you can't anticipate. Maybe not a physical healing, but who knows? We don't know exactly what the connection is between our emotional well-being and our capacity to experience healing in our bodies. So maybe you actually will be a part of that kind of a physical reaction. Who knows? But at least that touch will be a part of the current of God. You are spending the currency. You are investing in the currency of time and space that more shalom will happen. That's my hope for you today. I want to give you just a moment. Any thoughts that you want to kick back to me or say to the group? Anything striking to you today that you want to walk away with and you can barely keep it to yourself? Yes? Yeah, this shows up in, the question was for online. By the way, online people, we always have online people watching us, and it's a pretty faithful group, so hey, online people, thanks for joining us. Hope you enjoyed the time to think this stuff through as well. The question was, why did Jesus tell them not to say anything? And this shows up in all four Gospels at different times, oftentimes after a healing thing. And the different Gospel writers handled it differently. John is super specific about timing and names it that way, like if this is not my time, and so keep it to yourself. And that's generally the idea, is Jesus wants to control the deck as much as he can, and he knows that if the word gets out too much, it's actually going to sabotage his mission. And he's not going to be able to go as many places as he wants to go as freely as he can if everybody sees him as this, mega healer star thing, and he gets crowded everywhere and can't get anywhere. So that's the general idea. Obviously, somebody slipped because we're talking about this. So thank God somebody remembered this. Great question. Good Bible nerd question. Anything else out there? Something you want to say? Got to say? Ask? All right, well, I'm going to invite Gunger to come up here, Michael to come back up here to offer one more song, which should be a very familiar one to you, and I hope it will send us off well. Would you pray with me before we do that? So God, first we say thank you for those people who have been shalomi in our life, who just their very presence made a difference, but when they chose to invest time and space for us and with us, it really did make a difference. We can see it and feel it, and we're grateful for it today. So we thank you, God, for those people in our lives who loved us with time and space. They were a part of your current of shalom, and we experienced it. God, I ask that we would have a sensitivity to your Spirit, not just right now, but as we move forward from this place, and not just today, but every day, that we would recognize the holiness of this earth that we live in, this space that we live in, that as the song said earlier, everything is shimmering with glory. Holy, holy, holy. Everything is shimmering with glory. And if that's the case, God, then why not always be open and available for however shalom might flow through us? I pray that prayer for all of us, that we would see more shalom in our world because we have chosen to be conduits of it. May it be so. Amen.